Okay, we've had quite the last few days, last few trading days, I should say. Um, in case you haven't heard, the market has been a little bit down, and a little bit is a minor. What's the opposite of exaggeration? Saying it mildly. We've had pretty significant down days in the market on Thursday and Friday, and today was a bit more mixed. It was a bit more mixed, but it's still relatively red speaking. We are experiencing a period of economic uncertainty. And that is a good way of putting it, economic uncertainty, and the markets are a way of reflecting that, right? Markets react to the feelings of traders and companies that on what the economic situation is currently looking like. So when markets are down, it means that a lot of people, a lot of companies believe that things are not looking optimistic. I mean, things are not looking good. It's a reflection on, hey, we think that these companies that we're trading, the companies on the stock market, aren't worth as much or won't be worth as much as they used to be, and so that's why the stock market goes down. And so I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about how this might affect Disney. Right now, Disney is a big company. It has a lot of different things. It has movies, entertainment, right? It has the theme parks, which also include the attractions business, which also includes cruise ships, and then it has other things that you might also be included that Disney Plus, ESPN, that sort of thing. But Disney is a company that operates in the United States and is thus affected by the economy. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and try and outline this the best as I possibly can on what the effects could be. Now, the caveat being is that here, let me just go ahead and switch. We got a nice little here. We got a notepad. I always like notepad. Notepad's always good. So we're in a period of economic uncertainty, right? That is the period we're going here. That is a large font. Let's see. Let's change that font there. Maybe we go to 36. Economic uncertainty. So we're in a period of economic uncertainty that is currently driving things right now in the situation. Economic uncertainty is not good for a lot of things, but it's not good for companies. And here's the reason why, right? Let's say that you are planning a trip. Let's say you're planning a trip to Disneyland, and you have to figure out, okay, when you're planning a trip, what do you need, right? You need to know, okay, what's the date that you're going, right? What's the time frame? Maybe so that you could schedule, your vacation, right? So you schedule your vacation, right? You need to take time off. You need to let your employer know, hey, I'm not going to be here these days. You need to, if you have kids, you might say like, hey, we're going to, make sure that that's not going to interrupt any of their school activities. Maybe if they have a play, school play, you're not going to want to interrupt that. Okay, so you're going to need a date, right? Okay, and then you're going to need to figure out, how much is the cost, right? The money involved. And that could differ, right? Because what if you need to buy plane tickets, right? Plane tickets, the costs are going to cost a lot of money if you're going, say, right before Christmas or right before Thanksgiving. But if you're going, say, maybe mid to late January, plane tickets, travel costs are going to go down because people don't generally take vacations or travel around that time period, right? It's all supply and demand, right? The more people want to travel, like right before Thanksgiving, everyone needs to go home for Thanksgiving. It's going to be an expensive plane ticket, right? But if no one's traveling, costs are not. So costs, you can predict a cost based on, when you're going, okay? That's the other sort of thing here. And then there's like a couple other things that you might need logistics-wise, like, oh, do you need to renew your passport? Okay, well, better get that done here. But it's a lot of things are based around prediction, right? You need to know what the future holds, right? If you can't take the time off, then you can't go on vacation. If your kids have that play or there's a big test or something, you can't go on vacation, right? If the costs of the plane ticket is, $10,000, you're not going on vacation. At least I wouldn't go on vacation if the plane ticket costs $10,000. That's a lot of money. Some people might. I'm sure really popular celebrities think 10,000 is like probably nothing to them. But for most people, $10,000 is a lot of money. Okay, right? So this is all about predicting the future, right? This is planning ahead, right? Your vacation, you're unlikely to take a vacation next week, right? And just plan it the week before. Some people do. But most likely you're planning months ahead, maybe even years ahead for the future, right? So on all of this depends on when you're doing it and if things are going to be stable and the same price. That, you need the information now for what you're going to do in the ahead future. Companies act the same way. Companies absolutely want to know the future. They want to know what's going to happen in the markets, right? And they want stability, because if things are unstable, stability is good equals good for the company. If things are unstable, instability equals unpredictable. And if you can't predict things, you have no idea, if things are going to be good or bad. If your costs are going to go up, then that product that you want to create is useless, right? Because you can't sell it because it'll be too expensive, right? If the Disney company realized that the pandemic was going to happen, which is kind of hard to predict, a global pandemic, they would have then been like, okay, we got to make sure that we have a rainy day fund set aside, because all these parks are going to be closed for so many months, right? And then they could have then done things like everything that we're planning on doing maintenance wide, we're going to do it during the pandemic, because no guests are going to come, and so we don't necessarily need to we don't necessarily need to worry about rides being closed. If every single ride is closed and undergoing maintenance during the pandemic, then it doesn't affect their profit line, sort of, because the guests aren't going to be inconvenienced by closed rides. Now, of course, I was saying, like, wasn't that putting workers at risk because of the pandemic? And it says, well, I'm trying to tell you guys things from a company perspective, right? I think Disney is though definitely a bit more conscientious of that. So, but I'm trying to sort of show you that prediction and stability is good for companies. It's good for the economy. The economy, a stable economy is good for them, because then they can predict things, right? They want to know, everything ahead of time so they can make money, right? Disney's building cruise ships. Disney's building a few cruise ships. If the cost to build the cruise ships go up in the next 3 to 6 months, those cruise ships are going to need to do a lot more work to become profitable, than they are. Disney might be like, oh my gosh, it's going to cost us. They might, and for future cruise ships, they might want, but they say, like, is the cost going to be the same as if we're building these cruise ships, or is the cost going to be 2 times or 5 times as much, right? If Disney doesn't know, they might say, like, well, let's not build cruise ships. Let's not build any more cruise ships. Let's just hold the line there until we figure out how much it's going to cost, right? Same thing. If you don't know how much your vacation is going to cost in 6 months' time, you may not go, right? It could be like, oh, it's $1,000 vacation. Okay, that's doable. Oh, it's $100,000 vacation. That is completely off the charts, right? And if you don't know what that's going to be, you might not say, like, I'm not going to plan it, because if I don't have that information, I'm not going to go on vacation, because maybe it's good or maybe it's really bad, but I'm not going to take that chance. I'm not going to gamble, because $1,000 is not bad, but if you are set back $100,000, that could be life-changing, right? Life-changing. And the companies are seeing that same thing. So when there's instability, it means that companies are going to act more conservatively financially. I think that's going to... it circles back around, right? That's what we're going to see. That's what we're going to see right here. It's going to act more conservatively. That means they're going to take less projects. They're going to try not take less risk, and they're going to do whatever they can to save money, because they don't know what's the future is going to be like, and if they need money, if they need cash for the future because of one thing or another, they want to have that rainy day fund ready, just in case, because the future could affect their plans, and a company that runs out of money is a company that goes bankrupt, right? No money equals bankruptcy, and bankruptcy is bad for companies, which is bad. So everyone, all the companies, they want to avoid that. Okay, so now that we got that under the way of what the problem could be, economic uncertainty, that's what we're going to see what Disney's doing. Disney is going to play more conservatively financially in all their sectors, or at least as many sectors as they possibly can, because they don't know what the future is going to hold, right? And this is in a number of different reasons, but I can back you up. I can back this up with some information here. So we got some information here from Hugh Johnston. That's the Chief Financial Officer. It's one of these two. I think it's this one. Let's see. And he says, let's see here. See if we can find that there. Okay. Okay, so this is actually good. This is what Hugh Johnston's saying here. And actually, I want to say where he says macro. Macro is kind of the big word here. There it goes. Okay, Hugh Johnston's the CFO. CFO of the Walt Disney Company, right? So, chief financial officer, knows things about economics, finances, smart person. Okay. This is the big word here. This is the big word here. Let's go ahead and hide this here. Okay, so here's what he says, okay? Regarding your question on the guidance, or guide overall, obviously the results were certainly in excess of expectations in the first quarter. This is the first quarter earnings release, by the way, of 2025, released by Disney. So this is public information, because Disney is a public company, released to people. So this is literally this is the transcript of the earnings call. So this is literally what he's saying to investors, right? He says, he currently gives us confidence and even a higher level of confidence probably even had before as we get into the balance of the year. So this happened in, I believe this is February of 2025. So this was 2 months ago, right? And so this is like saying, we're optimistic. We think that we're going to be able to do well in this upcoming year. That's what is being said here by Johnston, right? Chief Financial Officer. Okay. However, he's saying, at the same time, given the rapidly evolving macro environment, we think it would be premature at this point to change the guidance. That said, to the degree that the business momentum and the business performance justifies it. We're certainly not a management team that's afraid of over-delivering, if in fact that is where the business takes us. So generally speaking, feel better about the balance of the year, and we started out the year feeling very positively about it. Okay, that's a lot of technical financial talk to basically saying, this point right here, sir. At the same time, given the rapidly evolving macro environment, we think it would be premature at this point to change the guidance. So they're saying, we're optimistic. We think things are going to go well for us. We have a good plan, but it's premature right now. This is what he's saying in February. It's premature right now to predict anything or to change what we think is going to happen, because the macro environment, the economic macro environment, is rapidly evolving, which means the economy is changing, and we can't predict what's going on. The economy is changing. We don't know the future. So he's saying we are not going to change what we're going to be saying, but we're keeping an eye on things, and we can't necessarily predict it. But they're concerned. And that makes sense, right? If a company is not necessarily concerned about the macro, about the economy, they may not necessarily do well. So that's what Johnson's saying. Okay? So Disney Company is concerned about the stability. Okay? What is instability in the economy? What is instability? Okay, so let's just scroll down here. So what is instability? Instability I can spell. Instability is are the cost prices stable, right? What about the stock market going up, down, or who knows what? It could also stay the same. But that's a good question, right? And what about profits? Profits predictable? Are profits predictable, right? Can you guarantee that you're going to make money, right? If you can't guarantee you're going to make money, that's bad news for a company, right? So there's also a lot of other things like, logistic costs, but that's all like costs and everything, logistics, that sort of thing. Okay, so that's basically what it comes down. There's a couple other things, right? But here's it. Is it costs? Is stock market profits? And all those are kind of interrelated with each other, which is what I'm going to go into in a second. Okay. Tariffs. I know. Tariffs. Or, that's the big word. That's the big word, tariffs. Let me define what tariffs are. I'm gonna simplify things. It's pretty straightforward. Tariffs are essentially a tax on imported goods into a nation, right? Okay? So imported goods. So if you are buying, let's say you're buying an iPhone. You're buying an iPhone from made in China, okay? So the iPhone's made in China. It costs $800. $800, okay? If there is a 50% tariff on an iPhone, let's say there's no tariff before. So it costs $800 it costs $800 to make in China, and they'll sell for $900, right? $100 profit, sure, right? So it costs $900. If there's a tariff, that means that the United States is going to say, oh, this good that you're trying to sell here that's made for $800, we're going to charge it 50%. 50% more tariff. So that's $400, right? 50% of 800. 50% of 800 equals 400. Additional 400, right? So the total, here, let me just scroll down, right? Total is equal to $1,200, right? That's a lot of money, $1,200. $1,200, okay? That means that it's to bring the iPhone from China to the United States, it's $1,200. That just cost, right? $800 to make it, $400 tax that goes to the government. Okay, straightforward. You're not going to sell, Apple's not going to sell us an iPhone for $900 if it's losing $1,200, right? That means that for every iPhone it sells, it's losing $300. iPhone is going to be like, okay, we need a raised price. Let's sell at $1,300. Okay? Because if it's at $1,300 minus $1,200 equals $100 profit, right? $100 profit. That's what they want. They want profit, right? It's the same profit as before, right? $100, but instead they have to sell at a higher price. Instead of $1,300, it's $900, right? So it's a tax. It's a tax on goods imported in the nation, right? Now, if it's a good that's within the United States, that's not affected, right? But if it's a good coming from a nation and from a nation outside the United States, then that's when tariffs take effect. And different countries might have different tariffs, different tariff rates here. I believe that let's see here, the announced tariff rates. Let's see. We could take a look here. Here, full list. This is CBS News. Full list of tariffs here. Okay, right there. There we go. So, that's a lot of stuff there. Okay. Okay, so here's the tariff rates, right, for different companies, right? Vietnam's 46%. We get stuff from Vietnam. We get stuff from China, 34%. This is actually might be wrong because China put some reciprocal tariffs on stuff, on our goods. So basically, China's saying, like, you put tariffs on us, we'll put tariffs on you, right? So anything that China's importing now from the United States, they're charging a tariff on those goods, right? Anything that we're producing and sending to China, they're putting tariffs. And that's made the administration unhappy. So they're saying, if you don't take those tariffs off, we're going to increase those tariffs by 50%. That was announced today. That was announced. Plus 50%. On China. I think there was a tweet there. 50% increase tariff China. And I think there was a tweet. Let's see here. Yeah. I think it was a Truth Social. AP News. I just want the picture of it. Anyway, AP News says, here's what it says. Trump will run Truth Social. He says, if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, April 8th is pretty soon, the United States will pose an additional tariffs of China of 50%, right? So you add 50%, right? Add 50%. Effective April 9th. So that's, again, pretty soon, right? That's what he wrote on Truth Social. Okay? And then he says that requested meetings will be terminated. So they won't talk about it either. So that's kind of what the interesting thing is there. So these Chinese tariffs could be 84%. 34 plus 50 equals 80%. Well, that's pretty interesting. That's a lot of money, of course. And then there's other things for here. Taiwan, 32%. That's where we're getting our chips from. And then, of course, there's a whole list of countries. Japan, that's a 24% tariff there. Japan recently announced that they're canceling Switch 2. Switch 2 is a game console pre-orders because of these tariffs, because they don't necessarily know how much it's going to cost the United States consumer from buying these new game consoles. So that's pretty interesting. So So that's what it comes down to is instability, right? Are cost prices going to be stable? And the answer is no. No. Here, let's just do it. Just bring that down here. And here, is cost prices going to be stable? And the answer is no, because we don't know the tariff rates. You know the tariffs. This was announced now, right? So if companies knew, let's say the companies knew that in 6 months, this is what the tariff rates are going to look like. All these tariff rates are going to be what's going to happen, right? Companies can have 6 months to prepare. Right, they could be like, okay, we need to figure out, where we're going to get our goods, and how are we gonna change the countries to get it from. Maybe China's 84% tariff, but we'll go and now buy things from Zimbabwe. I don't know if Zimbabwe can produce the same things that China can, but 18% is a lot cheaper than 84%. 18 is less than 84, right? So they had 6 months time. They can say like, okay, we can work around this. We can make new deals, right? This was announced fairly recently, right? And then, of course, the administration is saying, hey, we're going to raise China tariffs even further by 50%. That's just China, right? What if other countries do that? What if half these countries decide, hey, we're going to do reciprocal tariffs, and then the administration says, okay, we're going to raise tariffs prices. So that's the instability here. People just don't know. We don't know. Companies, I should say companies, but also us, don't know how much tariffs will be ultimately, right? And perhaps it will change every few months. We don't know. Nobody knows. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Nobody knows. And that's the instability. That's the uncertainty, right? Disney can't predict how much their goods are going to cost because they don't know how much those tariffs are going to be, right? And if Disney can't predict how much their goods are going to cost, they don't know if they need to order more stuff, change to a different country, not make the stuff at all, or whatever, because Disney has no clue. Disney has no clue on how much this is going to cost. So yeah, that's a big thing. That's a big thing. By the way, we are 22 minutes. We are 22 minutes in. I'm sorry. I know we talked a long time. We are 22 minutes into this video. And if you're still with us, leave in the comments the word mouse. Mouse. Like Mickey Mouse. Put the word mouse in here. Congratulations. Good job. You've been watching 22 minutes, and you're getting yourself ready for the future. Okay. 22 minutes in. Put mouse in the comments. Okay. So tariffs are a big problem, okay? Because there's the instability and companies are going to play more conservatively, okay? Tariffs also have another big problem in that they increase costs, right? Right? So that, like I said, right? The iPhone it's the whole iPhone situation again, right? $800 becomes $1,200. That means that they sell at $1,300 to make a profit, because Disney, Apple, every other company isn't going to try and sell a product at a loss. Right? They're here to make money, and if they're not making money, they're headed towards bankruptcy. So that happens there. And so what does that mean for Disney? Well, one, merchandise is going to go up. Merchandise costs are going up, especially anything from China, right? Because if we go from 34 to 84%, that could be bad. Let's take a look. Let's see. Disney store, and let's look at some. I know that Belle has some ears, right? There's some Belle ears, right? Look at those beautiful Belle ears. We're going to go to Disney store. Okay, beautiful ears here. How much do they cost here? $34.99. Okay, so we're gonna plug that into the calculator. Okay, $34.99. I don't know where they're made. Where are they made? Are they made in China? It's hard to tell. Okay, let's assume they're made in China. Okay, $34.99. Okay, Google is a calculator, by the way. And then it's gonna be increased by 84%. So to do that, it's 1.84. Right? 1.84. So the one is saying like, okay, the original price is $34.99. And it's 0.84. Another way of writing this is times 1, so that's the original price, plus 34.99 times 0.84, right? So that's the increase, right? This is the original price, that's increase. What this is going to give us is going to be the new price that Disney could sell at to make the same amount of money, okay? And that would mean that it's $64.38. We'll cut off the 38 there, right? So these beautiful ears here, instead of costing $35. Instead of costing $35, it will cost, I just closed the tab. Yeah, I'll reopen the closed tab. It will cost $64. $64.38. We'll round down. We'll give the benefit of the doubt. $64. $35 to $64. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a pair of ears. Beautiful ears, right? But would you pay $64 for a pair of them? I don't know. I don't think I would. I mean, I don't buy ears, but somebody who's here who generally buys ears, they may not. So increased costs means, right? Increase in goods in costs of goods, or I should say cost of merchandise. That's what we like to call it here at Disney, or merchandise there, right? Okay, so everything is more expensive. Okay, do people buy? Some will, but if things become more expensive, and you guys know this, right? If things become more expensive, generally speaking, people will buy less, because if more expensive, they're not gonna be like, I don't want to pay that, right? I'll buy eggs at $4 instead of buying eggs at $12. $12 is a lot for eggs. Actually, I've seen eggs at $10. Especially in the last few months where there wasn't a lot of eggs. There's such a dearth of eggs that there weren't any on the shelves. And anytime they would stock it, they'd be like, oh yeah, it's $10. $10 for the eggs. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna buy eggs. I could buy eggs at $10. Not 12 dozen eggs for $10. That's a lot of money, right? I'm not gonna buy ears at $64. I absolutely am not. Okay, so people are gonna buy less. That means less profit for Disney. If this is the same profit margin, right? We just did the calculation. It's the same profit margin, but if there's less people buying and they're selling less goods, it's less profit for Disney. And less profit equals bad. Less profit is bad. Actually, I should be less bad, okay? That's just one item, right? Now we're talking about lots of items across the parks, right? We're talking about plushies. We're talking about ears. We're talking about backpacks and clothes. We're talking about popcorn buckets and a number of other things that Disney sells. Toys. A lot of toys come from China. So, and that's not just sold at the parks, right? They're sold in the Disney store. They're sold in the toy stores, right? They're sold on Amazon. These are different things that Disney will have to raise the price on, or they'll decide, hey, you know what? People aren't going to buy this. We're not going to manufacture this at all because it's a waste of money, right? It's a waste of time, resources. If nobody wants to buy these ears at $64, if nobody wants to buy these ears at $64, nobody's going to buy it. Disney's like, oh, let's not make it. Let's not manufacture anymore, right? The alternative is Disney says like, okay, this is really bad. This is really expensive. New location, new factory, okay? Factory location. Now they're not going to build a factory. Disney doesn't build factories as far as I know. I could be wrong. But they're going to contract that work out to somebody else, right? And everybody said like, okay, China's really expensive. But maybe we could get Norway to make it, right? We get Norway make it, or Venezuela, or Chad, right? I don't know. That's a whole different question that Disney has to do, right? So they have to go make a new contract with a new company in a new country. They have to figure out shipping costs because you're not shipping from China anymore. You're shipping from a whole different area. You're going to have to see if there are any laws that they need to work through when contracting this work out to someone, and then they're going to have to figure out the logistics and how to make all of that work in a short amount of time. Because if you're changing where you're producing this, right, you have to rearrange everything, right? Everything might be coming from a different coast, right? If you're shipping things from Chad, it might be coming into a different port than shipping things from China. That could mean that there's still being increased cost because Chad still has a 13% tariff. So prices will go up, just maybe not as much as 84%. But it might mean that products that you see at the Disney store are not going to be available because all their inventory gets sold out, and they're not going to have anything left. They're going to be like, and they're saying like, well, we need, and they're going to say, hey, I'm sorry we don't have this, but we need 6 months to figure out how to get these goods from another place. And then bring them here, right? So a lot of goods that you might see might be sold out, or they might say it might empty, and you might be like, okay, I can't buy this anymore because Disney is changing the location they're doing things, right? They might try to manufacture things here in the United States, and that's definitely what the administration is trying to encourage, right? More internal manufacturing. The real problem right now that we're seeing is that Disney isn't the only company that's going to be trying to do this, right? Disney is competing with a lot of other companies, right, who are creating merchandise, right? Hasbro does toys, right? Mattel does toys, and Disney has contracts and with these different companies. But taking the entire global economy into account, if everyone is trying to find a new location, everyone is looking. That means that there is limited options, right? If there's only three factories that can do these ears, right, outside of China, and everyone is trying to use those factories, then those factories might be saying like, hey, I would love your business, I really would, but we don't have the capacity, to make your products for you, because Hasbro wants us to make these Thomas toys, and Mattel wants us. I think it's Mattel. Mattel wants to make these Thomas toys. Hasbro wants us to make My Little Pony. Like we can't make everything because we just don't have the ability to make everything. Right? There's a limitation. There's a human limitation. There's a technological limitation. Right? Of being able to do everything. Right? There's only so much time in a day, and because of that, Disney might be like, okay, we can't make our goods here. Because they simply just don't have the ability to do so, right? And so that's going to be a big problem because everyone is going to be looking for that extra, for that space. And if, supply and demand is, The other thing is that company could say like, hey, okay, we'll do it. We'll bump off My Little Pony, we'll bump off Thomas, but we're going to charge you extra. We're going to charge you 50% more to prioritize your products, Disney, over those two brands. And then Disney's like, well, then why are we going to you anyway? We could have just gone with China if you're going to charge it, 84%, 50%, kind of thing here. So merchandise is going to get more expensive. Things that you're going to buy from Disney, from everywhere, really, it's going to be more expensive. This is not just going to be related toys. It's also going to be electronics. It's going to be related to food. Some food we produce here in the United States, and that generally won't be affected. But anything that we import, will be affected, and just other things that other Disney products that sells. Okay, so that's just products. Oh my gosh, I know. We're like, Kevin, we're just get to the other things here. Okay, cost, price are stable. So no, that's gonna go up. Okay. Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that you're gonna have to hear here, right? So now let's talk about movies. Okay. Okay, Disney did actually really well last year. Oh, I don't need to zoom in, right? So 2024 movies most profitable or something. I think there's a wiki list on here. Yeah, right here. 2024 in film. Okay, so here are the movies. Here are the most highest grossing films of 2024. And as you notice, Disney hit the 1, 2, 3 spot. 1, 2, 3, right? We got Inside Out. Got number 1, Inside Out 2, I should say. Deadpool and Wolverine, another sequel, got the number 2 spot, and Moana 2, a third sequel, also got the number 3 spot. Disney also did well with the Mufasa Lion King movie, and then there's a couple other things. Notice something about here, right? All of these are sequels. Inside Out 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Moana 2 are all sequels. Even the ones that aren't by Disney. Despicable Me 4 is a sequel. Wicked is based on a book and a Broadway show. Mufasa the Lion King, I would say it's a sequel. It's technically a prequel, but it's basically built on an existing franchise. Dune is a sequel. Godzilla x Kong is a sequel. Kung Fu Panda 4 is a sequel. Sonic the Hedgehog 3, also a sequel. The top 10 movies are all built on existing franchises. Only Wicked might be considered more original. And it might Mufasa too, I suppose, because the stories didn't exist. Mufasa's story didn't exist before, but they're all built on existing franchises. Right? These aren't new movies that came out, right? That you never heard of before, right? The original Moana, right? Is like, was there a Moana story beforehand? Well, not really, right? Kind of thing here. You could even say like Cinderella or Beauty and the Beast, right? Where the stories behind it, sort of, they're fairy tales, but not the way that Disney was showing them. What does this mean? Okay. Disney, these are the most profitable films for this industry, right? Because these are I wouldn't say most profitable because we're not taking costs into account. But these are, generally speaking, the most profitable films for the industry because they're making a ton of money, right? Disney is very uncertain about the future. Disney does not know how much money they're going to make, right? Because if there's economic uncertainty, that means that prices, there I said, increase costs. That means if your food goes up, everything you're buying is going up. Are you gonna go to the movies? You might not. You might go to the movies. You might say like, hey, you know what? Let's not go in the theaters. Let's wait until it comes out. It comes out on Disney Plus, right? Right? Instead of buying a movie ticket, right? Well, that means that's less profit for Disney. That's less profit for Disney. What is Disney going to do? They're not going to take risks, right? They're going to play things conservative financially, right? No risk. And no risk means only movies that will make money. Or at least they'll anything that they'll try, right? Disney sometimes releases movies that don't make money, but generally speaking, they're trying to make movies that only make money, and they want guaranteed. Okay, so we got guaranteed, right? What are the movies that are guaranteed to make money? It's these. It's these movies. It's these movies right here. These movies. Sequels. Disney's gonna be like, okay, our franchises, the franchises that we know are gonna make money are sequels, right? So let's make more sequels. Let's take the how popular that all these movies are going to be that have generated excitement among our fans, and let's make a sequel of the movie. The sequel may be good or they may be bad, but there's going to be a lot of people that are willing to go to the movie theater and see these movies because they want to see the characters that they love again and see them in full screen and see the continuation of their stories. That's why people went to see Moana 2. That's what they want to know, what happens to Deadpool and to an extent Wolverine. They wanted to know what happens to Riley in Inside Out 2 and all the emotions, joy and sadness, right? Sequels. Disney's like say sequels make money. Sequels make money. In fact, even before the economic uncertainty, they know sequels make money. That's why they made these, right? Disney's going to do more of that. Disney's going to say like we're not going to take risks. We're going to make more sequels. We're going to make more sequels, and we're going to focus on that because we know that those are probably going to do well, right? It's less of a gamble. They're going to take less risk, right? And they might focus on less original stuff. However, there's a caveat. They might do more original stuff, but if it's original only if cheap. They might be willing to release original movies, but only if they're cheap to produce, right? If the costs are low, then the risk is low, right? The lower the cost, the lower the risk, right? The higher the cost, the greater the risk, right? But if you have a low cost, you might be willing to might be willing to put $150 million towards an animation show if there's like saying like, okay, that's not so bad compared to like, I don't know, how much did Moana 2 cost? Let's see here. Cost of Moana 2. It's probably somewhere in here. Marketing, localization. We'll just Google it. Cost of Moana 2 to make. Oh, 150 million. Well, then that's pretty good, right? See, that's what I'm talking about. 150 million, right? It made if the Moana 2. Now I'm on to it only costs 150 million to make, right? Oh, it says 300 million because of the marketing, right? So it's in 300 million according to Screen Rant. So 300 million. I thought it was a little bit more than that, right? So 300 million. 300 million versus how much did it make right here? $1 billion, right? So 700 million profit, more or less. Okay, not bad, right? So that's the kind of thing, right? Is that you're gonna do something if it's cheap to make, right? So that's kind of thing. Is Disney movies? Disney will focus on guaranteed successes. They're not going to take risk, right? If they're saying a project like well, this could make a lot of money, they'll be like, well, we don't know, and that's not just movies. That could be related to TV series. That could be related to their content that they put on Disney Plus. They're going to pull back a little and only focus on things that they think is going to make money. Yeah, so that's related to movies, right? Okay. Let's talk about the parks. Disneyland, Disney World. There was a lot of excitement. There's a lot of excitement because we just come off the 100th anniversary of Disney, the company, and we're coming on into the 70th anniversary of Disneyland. So there was a lot of discussion recently and saying we're going to see expansions for the parks, right? We're going to see new rides added to Disneyland, right? Avatar Land. There's going to be more rides for the Marvel, the Avengers campus. Disney World is going to get a Cars ride. So there's a lot of things that are being planned, and planning means construction, right? If you're going to add new rides, if you're going to expand the parks, you're going to need to tear some things down, flatten the area, and then build up, right? You're going to need to build up, right? That's going to take costs, right? Construction requires materials, and some is important. Some are important. And as we talked about before, imports are affected by tariffs, tax on imported goods, right? So if things are being taxed, that means the materials will get more expensive. And that means that the construction is going to be more expensive. That's a lot. What does this mean for Disneyland and Disney World? It could mean that some projects get canceled outright. Disney's going to look at the numbers saying like, all these materials that we need to build this ride, it's going to be a lot costlier to make this ride. It's going to take us forever to make this money back. Let's not make it at all. Let's cancel construction. We'll shelve the idea for another time, rainy day, or we'll shelve it completely, right? Disney's going to say that. So there could be a lot of cancellation projects. There could be delays. Disney could say like, okay, we can't afford to make this project right now, right away, because we have a budget for this year, right? And just like you have a budget for the year, Disney has a budget for the year. They're gonna say like, we can't spend all this much this year, right? So, but maybe over 5 years, we can still make the project, but we just spread out the cost, year by year by year, right? So it could be like, cancels, delays. It could delay the project, right? If you move out the cost, then things don't hurt you all at once, right? Because Disney doesn't want to spend a lot of money. But if Disney wants to still go forward with the project, Disney wants to do the project, they might say, okay, we'll just delay it, And the other thing that Disney might do is that they will redesign their project, right? So they're saying like, okay, we had this bold vision here. We had this bold vision for Avatar Land and California Adventure. It's going to be great and improve Disneyland, but we don't have the money to make all of Avatar Land because construction costs are going up. So we're going to say, instead, we are going to just do one Avatar ride, right? Instead of a whole land, we're going to just do something simpler, right? We're going to make the cost lower by not spending as much, by not making it as big. So it could be like, so downgrading experiences, right? They'd be like, oh, this roller coaster that we really want to add to Disney World, it's too expensive, but let's cut it in half. Let's just end the ride earlier. Right? Then you don't have to build, half the track, right? I don't know how really doable that is. I mean, a lot of engineers are just gonna have to go back to work and like look at the plans. But that's the kind of thing you could do, downgrading, right? They'd be like, if you don't need to do a whole land, you just want to do an Avatar ride, cheaper. So that's what Disney could do, right? That's what Disney could do. And so basically, what you're gonna see with these parks is that a lot of stuff, in addition to being more expensive, right, the merchandise, the food, is that you might not see a lot of projects moving forward or at all canceled, or they might be delayed, or they might not be as much as what was originally advertised by Disney, right? And Disney's always kind of changing these ideas. They're always kind of working things around year by year. But you might see this more often in the near future because of the economic uncertainty. So parks are definitely going to be affected by things there. You might saying like, Kevin, what about the ships, right? Because the ships are being built outside America. Okay, so they're saying like, okay, ships should be fine, right? Because if you're trying to build ships and your goods, it's all about goods being imported in your country, and the country ships are being built somewhere. I think they're built in Germany. I could be wrong. Then you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about the ships being the tariffs, right? Because they're not going to be affected. Well, the real problem is that the ships probably are using some items from America, and if that's the case, we could be reciprocal tariffs. That means that a company, this is what China's doing, right? we're putting tariffs on China, so China's putting tariffs on us. So anything that we're exporting to Germany for these ships, Germany's gonna say like, hey, you know what? We're gonna put a tariff on you on that because you're putting a tariff on us, right? You know, it's a tit for tat. And that means that the cost of those ships could go up. Now, I don't know if that's going to be true or not. I don't know if the European Union or Germany or anyone's going to really put tariffs coming in. Again, that's economic uncertainty. Disney doesn't know, but it could mean that Disney's like, let's not build any more ships. Let's complete the construction we have now, but let's not build any more ships until we know how much things are going to cost, kind of thing here. So ships could be affected, but probably less so than everything else. Here's the bigger issue that Disney is also kind of worrying about. Okay? And that is profits. I mean, costs are bad. Profits are also concerned. Like I said, right? We talked about profits here. Stock market stuff is basically a prediction of the instability, but profits predictable. And that's the other side of the coin, right? If you want to make money, your costs to be down, right? Profitability. Profit, and you want income to go. You want profits equals sales minus costs. Okay, we talked about costs. Costs are going up, right? What about sales? Sales are gonna go down. Sales are going down, and the reason why sales are gonna go down is again what we talked about with tariffs, right? Tariffs are going to increase costs. And it's not just Disney merch, food, electronics, other things are going to be increasing costs, right? If you have less money to spend, if the average American has less money to spend, that means you're going to buy less. You're going to focus more on the essentials. What are the essentials? Food, rent, utilities, water, electricity, your cell phone bill, right? That's more important, and then the extra stuff, right, comes later, right? You're not gonna, movies, that's extra. Going to a theme park, that's extra. Taking a vacation, that's extra. They're all great, and we all love doing them. We all love going to movies. I guess some people don't, but all of that is extra. And because of that, if you don't have the money, you're not willing to spend. So if sales go down because they're not going to go to Disneyland, right? They're not going to buy that Disney toy. That means that Disney's making less money, right? Sales going down is bad. This is bad, okay? For Disney. And that's what Disney's concerned about too, is they're saying like, oh, we're building all these ships, but are people really going to take vacations, or are they going to they're not going to spend money because they don't have the money to spend, right? Are they going to go to the theme parks? Are they going to buy the toys? And that could be bad. So Disney is really concerned about sales going down. And this is going to affect things, because if people are not willing to go on vacations, they're not going to visit the theme parks, that's going to mean that there's less people at Disneyland. The other side of the coin is that the administration has also kind of annoyed a few people. So it's also this is sort of a side note, but it says here, this is from Time. This time it says, anger over the Trump administration's tariff and rhetoric will likely cause international travel to U.S. to fall even further than expected this year. And this is according to Tourism Economics, and they said that there's going to be a decline of 9.4% this year. Of tourism from abroad. So abroad means outside the country. So it's going to be 9%. So a 9.4% decrease, right? And in Canada, this is Canada right here. Canada is going to go down by, I think, 20% right here. Yep, 20%. So Canada's going to be 20%, which is going to be affected by the border states, but also popular tourist destinations such as California, Nevada, and Florida. So Disneyland, Las Vegas, Disney World. Right? A lot of Canadians are saying, like, we're very angry about what's being said. We're not going to go to Disneyland. We're not going to go to Disney World. And they're not going to go to Las Vegas, I guess. Okay, so less people at Disneyland because, one, tourists aren't coming in. Tourists aren't coming in from abroad because they're angry. And two, people in the country aren't going to have the money to spend. So less people. Less people at Disneyland means less profits. What is Disney going to do? What is Disney going to do? More deals. They're gonna do things like, okay, please come to the parks, because Disney knows that if people do come to the parks, they will spend money, right? They may be saying like, okay, we're gonna maybe take a slight loss on the ticket sale, but we know that you're gonna buy popcorn, you might buy a toy, you're gonna eat there for sure, right? You're not, some people leave the parks to eat, most people are gonna eat at the parks, right? So you're gonna need more deals to get people in. Okay. They might also sell more annual passes, Magic Keys. Magic Keys, because that's kind of a way to encourage people to get people to come to the parks, and also a way to sell more money in general, right? If you buy an annual pass, you might be more willing to not only willing to go to parks, you might be more willing to spend money because you're more willing to go to the parks. Sort of thing here. And also, Disney uses a reservation system, right? So if you buy an annual pass but you can't get into the parks because of the reservation system, that's free money for Disney. That's free money for Disney, basically, right? It basically is like saying, oh yeah, we'll take your money, but if you can't actually attend the parks, then we don't have to worry about paying cast members to cater to, kind of thing here. So that's also a possibility. I don't think Disney is that greedy in the sense saying like, oh, we're gonna sell so many that you, but there's gonna be too many that you can't come to parks. I don't think Disney thinks that way, but they might be more willing to sell more annual passes when it might mean that it's really hard to get into the parks for locals. Okay, here's the other thing. That's just one side card. Less people at Disney means they don't want. There's gonna be less people to cater to, so there might be reduced hours. AKA close earlier, right? Disney has a tendency to close at midnight on really busy days, Saturday, Sunday, weekends, or during the summertime when everyone's traveling. But if Disney is not expecting a lot of travelers, a lot of people because of one reason or another, then they're going to reduce hours. They're going to close earlier so they don't have to pay the cast members as much. They don't have to worry about electricity costs, that sort of thing. So they're going to close early. So that's reduced costs. They're also going to be maybe reduced costs in other areas, aka less shows, right? They might have less shows, right? Smaller parades. If you don't have to have cast members in a parade, or you don't have to run a float, you could save money, right? Disney could be the calculations like, oh, what if we remove one float from this parade, right? That might save 5%, right? 5% could be a lot of money over time, right? Less shows, smaller parades. They might also try to figure out a way. So like, okay, what about food quality? Can this ingredient that's coming from Mexico is being tariffed, it's being taxed. But what if we use a slightly different ingredient from the United States, right? So it might be change recipes, which could be good or bad. Like maybe you didn't like how the food tasted, so if they change the recipe, you might like, oh, this is better, or maybe it's worse. I don't know, but it's possible that the recipes may change. And there's like a lot of little things that Disney can do. To make money on the margins here, right, by reducing costs. But these are the things that you're probably going to see. And when I say less people, I should clarify, less travelers from outside the country, possibly more locals. Especially if they do deals and sell Magic Keys. You might say, no, okay, well that's not too bad, right? Isn't a guess? Not really. 2 years ago, in an earnings release, when again we're talking about the earnings releases, right? This is information that Disney says to their investors. 2 years ago, they said that traveling guests, aka from outside the park, are more valuable to Disney in terms of money than locals. This is not saying that they're better. They're saying this is just Disney saying, hey, people traveling from abroad spend more money than locals do. And that makes sense, right? If you're a local and you're saying like, okay, I'm going to go to I want to go to Disneyland this year, but I'll probably go to Disneyland next year because it's really easy to get there. I don't have to buy a plane ticket. I just drive my car. I don't have to buy a hotel room. I'll just go I go from my house to the parks and then back again, right? So the costs are really easy. So the locals being like, I'll come back next year, right? So they may be less willing to say like, oh, this merchandise is cool, but you know what? I don't really need it. Maybe I'll buy it next year, right? Or maybe I'll see if there's anything better next year, right? While a traveling guest from outside the country, they might say like, this is my only time I'm going to go to Disneyland in my life. if there's something I want to buy now, I gotta buy it now because I will never be here again, right? That ears I'm gonna buy, right? They might be like, oh, I want to do the fast pass, I want to get into rides quicker. I'm gonna do the fast pass. I'm gonna buy the fast pass service because I don't know when I'm gonna be back here again, and I want the best experience possible. I don't want to wait in lines. I want to get on everything now, right? So traveling guests are willing to spend more money than locals are. That's natural, right? So that means that Disney prefers traveling guests over locals. But if they don't have any traveling guests, they're gonna be like, okay, we don't want an empty park. We'll try and get more locals in. So that's the calculation you can get here. So there might be more people at Disneyland, but it may also be just the kind of people that Disney would prefer. They rather have the travelers. So that's the other thing that you might see. Is less people traveling from abroad, more locals, and that can affect things in the local area, right? Obviously, if you're a local, you're not going to need a hotel, so hotel situation is going to be interesting. You're not gonna need to fly, so traveling via the planes, via air travel is going to be interesting. So all of this is kind of affected. This is a lot longer video than I thought I was going to make, honestly. But TR too long didn't read, right? Economics uncertainty equals bad for Disney. Okay, that means they're going to be more conservative economically. That means safer movies that equal profit. They're gonna be merch is gonna be equals more expensive. Construction projects delayed, canceled, or changed. Okay, that's gonna be things. And parks attendance, it will be more local, and they'll cut costs where they can. So they might close earlier, like I said, right? That's kind of the gist of what Disney's probably going to do, and I could be wrong. I could very well be wrong, right? This is just my observations as somebody that's been kind of been at Disney Company, has interacted with the market before and such. But I'm not on the Fed, right? I'm not Chairman Powell. I don't have a PhD in economics, so I could be very much wrong about all of this. But generally speaking, I think this is all kind of common sense. This is all sort of common sense. Any one of us could kind of think things through, and I've thought about this a lot because I apparently have just way too much time on my hands on what's going on here at Disneyland. So that's sort of what we're kind of experiencing. That's what the future is going to hold, and it's not it's not necessarily going to be a rosy picture for the Disney Company. I think that unless things get really bad, which I'm not sure about that either, I think Disney will be able to weather through it. But I think you're going to see changes. You're going to see some obvious changes in all the sectors that Disney has its hands in. And this could affect, your vacations. It could affect the movies you watch. It could affect a lot of things. But if you're a big fan of the Disney Company, this is probably what Disney's going to do to over the next few future. If things get better, right? If let's say all these great deals are made and all the tariffs go away, then Disney might be like, oh, okay, things are fine now. But the real thing that's always going to be nagging at the back of their mind is it's going to be like saying like, hey, all these tariffs just went away, right? If that happens, right? But they could come back, right? You never know, right? And then again, that leads to economic uncertainty. And economic uncertainty means more conservative economically, right? They're going to save money, right? So that's kind of the future. That's what Disney's facing right now. Yeah. If you disagree with me, if you think that's gonna, anything, feel free to leave a comment and everything. I could very well be wrong. And obviously, the farther out in time, the harder it is to sort of kind of gauge what might happen. I could see this happening over the next 6 months to a year. But 2 years from now, 5 years from now, things could very well change. Things could very well be different. So just kind of keep that in mind. But I think that in the more near term future, this is what we're going to be seeing over the next year. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions or you want to talk to me, feel free to DM me on Discord. Happy to have a conversation with you. Join my Discord, and we'll have to talk. But I'll see you later. Take care. Bye bye.